Ned Stark had always trusted his instincts, and this time they screamed danger louder than ever. After Eddard received troubling whispers from Varys about the Queen's secret plans, he understood the trap was closing faster than he thought. He had believed there would be time to investigate Jon Arryn's death, time to gather proof against the Lannisters, time to prepare his family. But now time had slipped from his fingers like melting snow. That evening, as the last rays of sunlight touched the Tower of the Hand, Ned called Jory Castle. "Find Yoren of the Night's Watch," he ordered quietly. "Tell him I need his help. 2 travelers must leave the city tonight, under his protection." Jory hesitated. "The girls, my lord." Ned's silence was enough of an answer. Yoren arrived later, smelling of ale and dust, his eyes sharp despite his rough look. "It'll be dangerous," the Black Brother warned, "but I've smuggled worse through these gates. They'll ride with me, heads down, faces hidden. No one will know." Ned clasped his shoulder, relief hidden behind his cold mask. "I trust you with my blood," he said simply. Arya took the news better than he expected. "Do I get a disguise?" she asked, eager as ever. "You'll have to act like a stable boy," Ned said, allowing himself the smallest smile. She grinned. "Good. I've been practicing." Sansa, however, froze. "But father," she pleaded softly, "the Queen promised to show me the court." "Gowns tomorrow," and Joffrey Ned knelt before her and took her hand. "Listen to me, little one. Sometimes promises hide daggers. I need you safe. One day you'll have gowns finer than the Queen's, but only if you come home with me." Sidiu Forel, Arya's dancing master, helped disguise her. "The first rule of the water dance," he whispered, wrapping her scarf tightly, "is knowing when to leave the fight." To Sansa he offered gentler words. "Little lady, today you will learn a new step. You will walk unseen." That night, Euron guided the sisters through the twisting alleys of King's Landing. The city was alive with drunks, merchants, and shadows moving where shadows shouldn't. Arya rubbed soot on Sansa's hands and cheeks, smudging her pale skin. "You'll thank me later," she teased. Sansa only sighed but whispered a soft, "Thank you." After a moment, they reached the wagon stacked with rough-spun cloth near the river docks. Euron tossed a blanket over them and spoke in a low growl. "Keep quiet, keep your heads down. The gold cloaks are everywhere tonight." Sansa clung to Arya's arm, trembling slightly. Arya, for once, stayed silent, gripping needle hidden beneath. Her tunic back in the tower, Ned sat alone, writing 3 letters. One to Catelyn, explaining his fears and the path he had chosen. Another to Robb, preparing him for the possibility that war was coming. And the third to Varys, short and sharp. "The game moves faster than I expected. My daughters must live." He sealed them and watched the candle burn lower. Knowing the storm had begun, the cart creaked under its weight as Euron steered it through the quiet, shadowed streets of King's Landing. The smell of fish, rot, and smoke clung to the damp air. As the sisters huddled beneath a coarse blanket, hearts pounding with every hoofbeat, Arya kept peeking out from a tiny gap, trying to watch the city lights fade behind them, while Sansa clutched the rough cloth tighter, silently praying they wouldn't be caught. "Keep your head down, little wolf," Euron whispered without looking back. "The gold cloaks aren't blind, and tonight they're hungry." Arya rolled her eyes, but obeyed, though her fingers still rested on needle beneath her tunic. She liked having the blade close, as if it could make her braver. Sansa, meanwhile, trembled whenever she heard boots striking cobblestones or drunken shouts echoing through the alleys. She thought of Joffrey, his golden hair and charming smile, and part of her still clung to the hope that he would come looking for her. But Ned's warning echoed in her mind. Promises hide daggers. When they reached the outer gates, the danger thickened like fog. 2 gold cloaks blocked the road, lanterns glowing faintly in the darkness. "Who goes there?" one barked. "Your," spat to the side and answered lazily, "Just a black brother with recruits for the wall." The guard raised his torch, scanning the cart. For one heart-stopping moment, his eyes lingered on the blanket where Sansa's hand trembled. Arya grabbed it and pressed it down, squeezing hard until her sister stilled. "Too late in the night for recruits," the guard muttered suspiciously. "King's orders say no one leaves without inspection." Yoren's face hardened, his tone turning rough. "And the wall takes who it pleases." "You want to explain to the Lord Commander why his men come back short-handed?" The man hesitated, chewing on the choice, then waved them through with a grunt. Arya let out a quiet breath. Sansa buried her face in her hands. By dawn, the cart rattled onto the King's Road, leaving the noise of the city behind. The open fields stretched wide under a pale early sun, and for the first time in weeks, Arya felt a sliver of freedom. Sansa, though, looked back toward the distant red towers until they disappeared entirely. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep, Queen Cersei paced her chambers like a lioness in a cage. Siamaran Trant reported that the Stark girls had not been seen at the castle since last night's supper. A flicker of anger crossed her face, sharp and cold. "Find them," she ordered softly, "dangerous as poison. If Eddard Stark thinks he can hide his pawns from me, he underestimates the game." By midday, Varys visited Ned quietly, robes whispering like secrets. "You've made your move," the spider said, smiling faintly. "Cersei has noticed the missing pieces." "I'll not have my daughters used as bait," Ned replied, his voice iron. Varys tilted his head. "Then you must be ready for her next play. The Queen does not lose gracefully." On the King's Road, Euron urged the wagon faster. "We've bought ourselves a day, maybe 2, he muttered. "But when they realize you're gone, they'll send riders." Arya tightened her grip on Needle. Sansa shivered beneath the blanket. Her thoughts scattered between Joffrey's smile and her father's warning. Neither of them knew that the chase had already begun by the time the sun dipped low behind the trees. Arya and Sansa had been on the King's Road for nearly a day. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, a strange relief after the filth of King's Landing. Arya sat cross-legged on the rough boards of the wagon, fidgeting with Needle under the blanket, while Sansa sat quietly, her back straight, despite the bumps on the road. She hadn't spoken much since they left the city, her thoughts drifting constantly back to Joffrey, to his soft words, his promises, his golden hair gleaming in the sun. Yoren walked beside the cart, his heavy boots crunching over gravel. "Keep your silence," he warned, glancing back at the girls. "The less folk know who you are, the better. Them gold cloaks will have orders by now, and Lannister coin buys fast legs." Arya frowned. "Let them come," she muttered under her breath, her fingers tightening round Needle's hilt. "I can fight." Euron barked, a laugh that wasn't amused. "Aye, little wolf, you might stick 1 or 2, but 10 more will come after. Best fight is the one you walk away from." Hugged her knees, listening but saying nothing. The soft wind carried the distant sound of hooves, faint but steady, and even Arya stopped playing with her sword when she heard it. Euron raised a hand sharply, forcing the wagon to a halt. He crouched low, scanning the tree line, his dark eyes Narrowing, 3 riders appeared on the road behind them, moving fast, cloaks whipping in the wind. Yoren cursed under his breath. Gold cloaks. He yanked the blanket tighter over the sisters. Down, both of you. Don't breathe, don't twitch, don't so much as sneeze. The riders approached, swords sheathed but hands resting close to their hilts. The leader's voice was sharp. You there, stop the cart. Yoren leaned on the wagon as if bored, scratching his beard. Just a black brother, taking my new recruits north. The gold cloak's eyes narrowed. Recruits, huh? Let's see. Their faces, Sansa's breath caught in her throat. Arya reached for needle instinctively, but Yoren stepped forward, putting himself between the cart and the riders, his voice suddenly cold as winter steel. You planning to question the Night's Watch, boy? You think Lord Commander Mormontel like hearing you delayed his men? The rider hesitated, uncertainty flashing in his eyes. Finally, he spat to the side and waved them off. Get out of my sight, Crow. Only when the hoofbeats faded did Sansa let out a shaky breath. Arya, heart racing, whispered, I could have taken them. Yoren gave her a hard look. Little wolf, if they'd seen your face, you'd be riding south in chains. Back in the Red Keep, the storm was brewing. Cersei slammed her goblet onto the table, wine spilling dark over polished wood. The Stark girls are gone, she hissed. Do you think this is coincidence? Do you think Ned Stark outplays me? Jaime leaned casually against the wall, his golden armor gleaming. Perhaps he simply plays better than you expected. Cersei's green eyes burned. Send more men on the king's. If they've left the city, I want them found before they reach the Riverlands. Meanwhile, Ned prepared for the Queen's retaliation. He had chosen secrecy, but now he would need allies. In the small council chambers, he stared across the table at Littlefinger. I'll need gold for men, Ned said bluntly. Littlefinger's smile was thin and sharp. Ah, Lord Stark, he purred. Men I can find. Loyalty, however, that costs extra. Ned ignored the bait, his jaw set. Get them anyway. That night, under a canopy of stars, Arya whispered to Sansa, when we reach Winterfell, I'm going to train with Sario every day until I can. Beat the Hound. Sansa turned her face away, silent for a moment before whispering back, I just want to go home. Neither of them knew how far from home the game would take them. The King's Road stretched endlessly, a ribbon of dirt winding between dark forests and rolling hills. Arya sat at the back of the cart, legs dangling as the morning sun broke through the mist. She had not slept much. Every snapping twig and distant howl had kept her wide-eyed through the night. Sansa curled under the rough blanket, looked pale. An exhausted Yore trudged beside the wagon, his hand never far from the hilt of his dagger. We're making good pace, he muttered, glancing at the tree line. But Lannister riders will be on us soon. Once they start searching, gold loosen plenty of tongues along this road. Arya perked up immediately. Let them come, she said fiercely, clutching needle at her side. I'll stick them like Syrio taught me. Yoren gave her a sharp look, his weathered face serious. Little wolf, this isn't the practice yard. One mistake on this road, and you won't have time to learn from it. Sansa finally spoke, her voice soft and shaky. Why would the Queen send men after us? She likes me. She likes Joffrey. Her words wavered, as though she was trying to convince herself. You're on side, because liking don't matter when power's at stake. Cersei don't see girls, she sees pieces on a board. You're both Stark blood, and Stark blood's trouble for her. As the day wore on, the road grew busier. Farmers led oxen carts, traders rolled barrels of wine, and weary travelers trudged north. Yoren steered the wagon into the flow of people, hoping to hide among the crowd. But as they reached a small roadside inn by dusk, Arya spotted them first 3 gold cloaks, drinking from skins and questioning anyone who passed. "They're looking for us," Arya whispered, pulling arm. Sansa froze, her breath quickening. "Keep your heads down," Yoren ordered. "Don't look at them, don't speak, and for the old god's sake, don't run. Running draws eyes faster than blood." But as fate would have it, one of the gods spotted the cart and started walking toward them. "Oi, you there?" he called out. "You with the recruits, stop a moment." Yoren cursed under his breath. "Stay quiet," he hissed at the sisters. He turned, fixing the man with a glare, sharp enough to cut stone. "Black brothers, pass free," he growled. "I've got lads bound for the wall and no time for your questions." The gold cloak narrowed his eyes. Orders from the Queen. 2 high-born girls missing from the city. Might be hiding among the likes of you. He stepped closer, reaching for the blanket covering the cart before he could lift it. Yoren grabbed his wrist like a trap snapping shut. "Touch that blanket," he said in a low, deadly voice, "and I'll leave your hand swinging from my belt." The man hesitated, glaring, but another gold cloak pulled him back. "Let him go," he muttered. "We'll check the next wagons." Reluctantly, the guard stepped away, spitting into the dirt before returning to his drink. Once they were out of earshot, Arya let out the breath she'd been holding. "I could have stuck him," she whispered, grinning faintly. Sansa, however, was trembling, tears pricking her eyes. Yoren put a hand on her shoulder gently. "You keep that steel inside you, girl. You'll need it before this road's done." Far away in the Red Keep, Cersei was growing restless. Reports came hourly. None of the search parties had found the Stark girls. Jaime lounged casually on a chair, polishing his golden sword. "You've sent riders on every road," he said lazily. "Perhaps Stark's wits are sharper than you thought." Cersei's jaw tightened. "He's hiding them somewhere. I'll find them, and when I do, Ned Stark will learn what happens to men who play games with lions." In the small council chamber, Varys whispered softly to Ned, "You've gained some time, my lord, but time is a coin you cannot spend twice. The Queen grows furious, and furious lions are dangerous." Ned nodded grimly. "Let her rage. My daughters will be beyond her reach soon." But even as he said the words, doubt stirred in his chest. He knew Cersei Lannister, and he knew she would not give up the hunt so easily. Back on the King's Road, the sun dipped below the horizon. Yoren drove the cart off the main path into a small clearing hidden by pines. As the sisters curled together, under their thin blanket, Arya whispered into the dark, "Sansa, when we get home, I'll never let anyone take us away again." Sansa didn't reply. Her silent tears told Arya she wasn't sure they would ever see Winterfell again. The morning broke cold and grey on the King's Road, a thin mist curling low over the earth as Yoren's cart creaked steadily north. Arya sat cross-legged, chewing on a piece of stale bread, while Sansa stared blankly at the passing trees. Neither of them had spoken much since the encounter with the gold cloaks. Every sound in the distance made them tense, the snap of a twig, the flap of wings, the rustle of leaves. Yoren walked beside the cart, shoulders hunched, his eyes constantly scanning the woods. "Listen, sharp, little wolves," he said in a low voice. "Cersei ain't the type to let loose hounds and hope they find you. She'll send hunters, smart ones, and the gold cloaks weren't the last we'll see. Arya straightened up, her hand resting on Needle's hilt beneath the blanket. Then let them come, she whispered fiercely. Syrio says fear cuts deeper than swords. Yoren smirked faintly, but shook his head. Aye, but so does steel. And them Lannister blades are longer than yours, girl. Remember, you fight only. If you've no other choice. Sansa, pale and silent, finally spoke, her voice soft and brittle. Father wouldn't let them hurt us. He'll stop them. Yoren looked at her, his expression hard but not unkind. Little lady, your father's a good man, but good men bleed same as bad ones. Out here, it's you, me, and the road. Best. Keep your prayers quiet and your eyes open. Back in King's Landing, the Red Keep was boiling with tension. Cersei Lannister stood by the window of her solar, staring out at the city below, her jaw tight with barely contained fury. How far can two girls get with one crow and an old cart? She hissed. Jaime leaned lazily against the doorframe, polishing his golden sword. Farther than you think, he replied. Ned Stark's no fool, sister. If the girls are gone, he's thought this through. Cersei's green eyes burned with anger. Then we'll think faster. She turned to Seer Trant. Send twice as many riders. Offer gold to every innkeeper, every merchant, every thief in Flea Bottom. I want eyes on every road north. If they're out there, I want them brought back or broken. By noon, the sisters' journey took them through a stretch of woods where the road narrowed, the shadows thickening under heavy branches. Yoren slowed the cart, his brow furrowed. Too quiet, he muttered. Arya's ears pricked up. Quiet's good, isn't it? Not when you're being hunted, he answered grimly. A moment later, they heard the sharp, distant crack of hooves on hard earth, fast and deliberate. Yoran's curses were low but bitter. Riders, too many to outrun. He yanked the cart off the main road and guided it into the cover of the trees, shoving the girls behind a fallen log. Don't move, he hissed. Don't breathe unless you have to. If anyone sees you, you're done. Arya crouched low, needle clutched, tight, her heart hammering in her chest. Sansa trembled beside her, squeezing her sister's hands so hard it hurt. The riders appeared moments later, 5 gold cloaks, their armor dull in the weak sunlight, swords already drawn. They halted where the road curved, scanning the area tracks. One muttered, pointing to the cart's wheel marks leading into the trees. They're close. Arya's fingers itched on Needle's hilt, but Yoren crouched low in the undergrowth, motioning fiercely for silence. Suddenly, one of the riders dismounted, following the tracks toward the clearing. He drew closer and closer until Arya could see the scar running down his cheek. The gold lion clasped at his cloak, glinting faintly. Sansa bit her lip, holding back a whimper, but Arya's breathing grew sharp, wild. She whispered barely above her breath, I can take him. Yoren shook his head, mouthing silently, not yet. Just as the riders stepped within reach, a distant horn blew from the far side of the road. The man froze, glancing back at his commander, who waved him off impatiently. Leave it, he barked. That's Seer Mandan's signal weave. Got to regroup. The riders turned back, disappearing into the trees as quickly as they had come. Leaving only silence behind, Sansa slumped against the log, tears of relief sliding down her cheeks. Arya, still gripping Needle, whispered fiercely, next time. I won't hide. Yoren crouched beside them, his voice low and deadly serious. Next time, little wolf, you will hide, or next time will be your last. Back at the Red Keep, Varys found Ned alone in his chambers. The Queen's men are tightening their grip, the spider murmured. If your daughters are found, they will not come back as guests, my lord. Ned's face was stone, his voice cold. Then we make sure they're not found. Varys smiled, faintly, though his eyes stayed unreadable. Then you would better pray your black crow flies faster than the lion's claws. Far to the north of the city, the sisters huddled together beneath the blanket as Yoren steered the cart deeper into the wilderness. The road ahead was long, the danger far from over, and the Lannisters were closing in. The King's Road stretched ahead like an endless serpent, twisting through dense forests and shadowed valleys. The morning air was damp, heavy with the scent of pine and earth, but Arya barely noticed. She sat at the edge of the cart, needle gripped, tightly under the blanket, her restless eyes scanning the tree line. Beside her, Sansa sat in silence, her face pale and tired, her thoughts tangled between fear, confusion, and a faint hope that Joffrey would somehow come looking for her. Yoren trudged beside the wagon, his boots crunching over gravel, shoulders hunched and jaw tight. "We'll keep to the woods today," he muttered, more to himself than to the girls. Lannister riders are everywhere now. Gold buys plenty of mouths, and Cersei's handing it out like sweet cakes. Arya frowned, whispering, "If they catch us, I'll fight." Yoren shot her a sharp glance. "Little wolf, you can stick a straw dummy all you like, but gold cloaks ain't straw. They'll cut you down faster than you can blink. Best fight you win is the one you never start." Sansa hugged her knees, voice barely audible. But why? Why is the Queen doing this? Father serves the king. Joffrey loves me. She wouldn't hurt us. Yoren sighed deeply, rubbing the back of his neck. "Girl, you're still dreaming of songs. Cersei ain't got love for anyone but her own. You're Stark blood, and that's reason enough for her to want you locked in a cage. Or worse." Sansa's lips trembled, and Arya reached over, giving her hand a quick squeeze. For a moment, neither spoke. Back in the Red Keep, Ned Stark was walking into his own storm. The small council chamber buzzed with tension, whispers curling like smoke around the table. Littlefinger leaned back lazily in his chair, fingers steepled, a faint smirk curling his lips. "My Lord Hand," he said smoothly, "the Queen grows impatient. Her riders scour every road, yet your daughters remain ghosts. I'd almost admire it, were I not so concerned for your position." Ned's cold grey eyes fixed on him. "This isn't a game, Baelish." Littlefinger's smirk widened. "Oh, but it is, my lord. You simply refuse to play by the rules. That makes you interesting." Varys spoke softly from the shadows. "Cersei suspects more than you think. When she learns the girls are gone, her wrath will be dangerous. You should prepare." Ned's jaw tightened. "I already have." But outside the council chamber, Littlefinger's expression shifted, his playful mask cracking into something colder, darker. That night, beneath torchlight, he sent a raven bearing quiet words to Cersei's hand. "The wolf hides his cubs. The crow carries them north." By the second night, the King's Road turned silent again, too silent for comfort. Yoren halted the cart beneath a cluster of old oaks, sniffing the air like a hound. "Something's wrong," he muttered. Arya leaned forward, whispering, "You hear something?" "Not hearing something's the trouble," Yoren replied grimly, drawing his dagger. "Road this close to the city ought to have farmers, traders, drunks. Noise. This is quiet because something's hunting. Before Arya could reply, it came the faint, steady rhythm of hoofbeats carried on the wind. Fast, purposeful, too many for travelers. Yoren, single quotes as hands shot up. Off the cart, now. The sisters scrambled behind a clump of bushes, crouching low beneath tangled branches. Yoren pulled his cudgel free, planting himself beside the wagon as shadows emerged from the tree-lined 6 gold cloaks in full armor, their swords gleaming faintly in the moonlight. The lead rider dismounted, his lion-clasped cloak brushing the ground. "Yoren," he said smoothly, "you carry something of value for Lord Stark. Hand it over, and we'll not spill blood tonight." Yoren spat into the dirt. "You want my wagon? Take it. You want my recruits? Take them. But you'll not touch the girls." The Goldcloak's smile turned sharp. "Then you admit they're here?" Arya's grip on Needle tightened. Her heart thudded so loud she thought they'd hear it. Sansa pressed her hand to her mouth, eyes wide with terror. Yoren raised his cudgel, stance wide and steady. "Come for them, and I'll send you back to Cersei without teeth." The man's smirk vanished, and steel hissed free from scabbards. "Kill the crow," he ordered coldly. "Bring me the wolves alive." The first clash rang out like thunder. Yoren swung hard, knocking one rider from his saddle, but 2 more closed in, blades flashing under the pale light. Arya clung to Sansa, trying to drag her deeper into the woods, but Sansa froze, paralyzed by fear. And then, from the darkness beyond the trees, a horn blew long and low. The Goldcloaks hesitated, startled by the sound. Yoren used the moment, swinging his cudgel, and knocking another soldier flat. "Run!" He roared at the sisters. "North. Don't stop, don't look back." Arya yanked Sansa's arm, pulling her into the shadows as chaos erupted behind them. Back at the Red Keep, Cersei smiled faintly as she read Littlefinger's raven. "The wolf sends his cubs to the woods," she murmured. "Then we send hunters to the woods." The game had turned deadly, and the sisters were no longer safe, even miles from the city. The forest swallowed the sisters whole, its shadows deep and tangled as Arya dragged Sansa through the undergrowth. Branches clawed at their cloaks, roots caught their feet, and the cold night air burned in their lungs. Behind them, steel clashed, and men screamed the sound of Yoren's stand against the Goldcloaks. "Faster, Arya hissed, pulling her sister along. But Sansa stumbled, her skirts catching on a branch. I can't," she whispered, breathless, trembling. Arya spun around, eyes blazing even in the moonlight. "You have to. You want them to take us. You want Joffrey's mother to lock us in a cage?" Her words cut sharper than needle. Sansa swallowed her sobs and nodded, forcing herself to keep up. Behind them, the sound of the fight grew distant, but not gone. Back at the wagon, Yoren fought like a man possessed. His cudgel cracked against armor, sending one Goldcloak sprawling, but there were too many. 2 blades slashed his side, leaving blood soaking through his black cloak, yet he refused to fall. "You'll not have them," he roared, shoving one attacker backward into the mud. The Goldcloaks regrouped, circling him, but the distant horn blew again, the same low, mournful sound as before. The lead rider cursed. "Fall back. Sir Mandan wants us at the river crossing." Reluctantly, they pulled away, leaving Yoren bloodied but breathing. He dropped to one knee, clutching his side, his breath ragged. "Little wolves," he muttered, scanning the forest edge, but the girls were gone, swallowed by the night far ahead. Arya and Sansa stumbled into a small clearing, collapsing under an old oak tree. Arya peered back through the darkness, straining to hear pursuit, but the woods had fallen silent except for their ragged breaths. Sansa clutched Arya's hand, tears streaking her dirt-smeared cheeks. "Why are they doing this?" she whispered, voice cracking. "Why does the Queen hate us?" Arya bit her lip, her voice low and fierce. "Because we're Starks. Because Father's not like them. And because the Lannisters want power more than they want heir." Sansa hugged her knees, silent, shivering under the weight of her shattered dreams. The world of songs and princes she'd built in her head was crumbling fast, replaced by shadows and fear. Arya, restless and frustrated, drew needle and traced the edge of the blade with her thumb. "If they find us, I'll stick them," she muttered, more to herself than Sansa. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep, Cersei sat in her solar, sipping deep red wine as Littlefinger stood nearby, his hands clasped behind his back. "The gold cloaks failed," she said flatly, her voice like glass about to crack. Littlefinger's smile was smooth, almost mocking. "My Queen Yoren is craftier than he looks, and the Stark girls are. Stubborn, but panic not. The road is long. There are many places to close a trap." Cersei's eyes gleamed coldly. "Then we tighten the noose. I want riders on every northern pass, spies in every village, and coins in every hand. The wolf's cubs will not leave this forest." Jaime entered without knocking, his golden armor reflecting candlelight. "Sister," he drawled, "you're wasting energy chasing girls when you should be dealing with Stark himself." Cersei's gaze turned sharp. "I am dealing with him. Take his daughters, and the wolf bows. Let him rage heal, have no teeth left when I'm done." Back in the clearing, Arya spotted movement in the shadows and shoved Sansa flat against the ground, her hand clamping over her sister's mouth. A branch cracked softly in the distance. Two figures moved through the tree's gold cloaks, searching Arya's. Heart pounded. She raised needle, her knuckles white around the hilt. Sansa, trembling, closed her eyes and buried her face in the dirt. The footsteps drew closer, closer, until suddenly a rough hand covered Arya's wrist. She twisted, ready to strike, but Yoren's whisper cut through the darkness. "Easy, little wolf. It's me," bloodied but standing. Yoren hauled the girls to their feet. "They're not giving up," he rasped. "We move now, north. Fast." Arya tightened her grip on needle. Sansa clung to Yoren's cloak, and together they slipped, deeper into the black heart of the forest, knowing the hunters were still out there. Far behind them, under the pale moonlight, the lion's claws were closing. The night dragged on like an endless shadow as Yoren led Arya and Sansa deeper into the forest, avoiding the King's Road entirely. The air was damp and cold, their breaths visible in the pale moonlight. Every snap of a twig sent shivers down Sansa's spine, while Arya gripped needles so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "We're close to the river," Yoren rasped, his voice rough from pain. His bloodied side was bound with strips of cloth, but he kept moving, one hand on his cudgel, the other steadying himself on tree trunks. "If we cross before dawn, we might lose their trail. After that, we head for the holdfast near the mill. Safer there." Sansa, trembling and exhausted, whispered, "What if they're waiting for us?" "They are," Yoren admitted bluntly. "But we're wolves. Wolves don't run blind, we find new paths." Arya's eyes narrowed in determination, though her voice shook. "Then we'll make them chase shadows, far away in the Red Keep." The trap was already set. Cersei stood over the map table in her chambers, her sharp green eyes locked on the northern passes. Dozens of carved lion markers lined the King's Road, each representing riders, scouts, and spies. Littlefinger leaned lazily nearby, his fingers steepled, his smile thin and secretive. The crow bleeds. But he keeps moving, Cersei muttered, tracing the wooden markers with one elegant finger. They think the woods will hide them. Littlefinger tilted his head. Wolves are clever, my queen, but lions hunt in packs. Jaime entered, his golden armor glinting faintly in the candlelight. We've placed riders at the river crossing, he said. If they go that way, they'll walk into our jaws. Cersei's lips curved into a cold smile. Good. Let Stark learn his daughters cannot run from me. By dawn, Arya spotted mist curling off the riverbank ahead, faint silver light shimmering on the slow, dark water. Relief flickered in her chest, but Yoren froze, holding up a hand. Arya crouched low, her heart pounding. What is it? She whispered. Yoren. Single quotes, eyes narrowed as he scanned the trees. Tracks, he murmured. Heavy horses. Fresh before they could move, the forest erupted with movement 6. Gold cloaks bursting from the trees, blades drawn. Behind them came two mounted knights, their cloaks stitched with the golden lion of Lannister. Sansa screamed, grabbing Arya's arm. But Arya shoved her behind a fallen log, her own blade flashing in the weak light. Run, Yoren roared, stepping forward to meet the riders. His cudgel cracked against the first Goldcloak's helm with a sickening thud. Another lunged, slashing at his side, but Yoren shoved him back, blood soaking his tunic. Arya grabbed Sansa's hand, pulling her into the trees as the battle raged. Behind them, Yoren fought like a cornered wolf, holding off 3 men at once, giving them a chance to escape. Go, he shouted hoarsely, his voice cracking. North, don't stop, no matter what happens to me. But as the sisters ran, more riders emerged ahead, blocking the narrow path. Arya yanked Sansa down behind. A cluster of rocks just as the hooves thundered past, her breath loud in her ears. Sansa trembled violently, tears streaming down her face. They're everywhere, she whispered. We'll never get away. Arya looked at her, eyes blazing, jaw set with fierce defiance. Yes, we will. We're Starks. Wolves don't kneel. Back in King's Landing, Ned Stark's world was collapsing when he arrived at the small council chamber. Renly Baratheon intercepted him, pale and tense. Your daughters are being hunted, Renly said quickly. Cersei's men are all over the King's Road. You need allies, Stark, or you'll lose them. Before Ned could reply, Littlefinger stepped from the shadows, his smile cold and unreadable. Oh, I offered him allies, he said silkily. I even offered him the gold to buy them. But wolves, it seems, never trust cats. Realization struck. Ned to late Littlefinger had betrayed him. Cersei already knew everything. The girls, the root Yoren's involvement. The Queen's trap had been closing from the start. On the King's Road, chaos consumed the forest. Yoren's shouts faded behind them as Arya and Sansa pushed through thorns and brambles, running until their legs burned and lungs screamed for air. Then, suddenly, Arya pulled Sansa behind a hollowed tree trunk, forcing her down into the shadows. Stay quiet, she hissed, heart pounding so loudly she thought the riders would hear it. Through the slits in the bark, Arya watched boots crunch past, Lannister armor shining faintly in the pale light. One rider stopped, scanning the clearing. Her hand tightened around Needle, ready to strike if he turned, but a horn blew from deeper in the woods. Pulling him away, silence fell again, heavy and sharp. Arya slowly lowered the blade, forcing herself to breathe. "We're not safe yet," she whispered to Sansa, wiping sweat and dirt from her face. "But we're still free, and for now at least, the wolf cubs still ran, even as the lion's jaws closed tighter around them.